was I a fool for buying all this stuff? I had computer components in their boxes all over my dining room table. I didn't even think computer games were that worthwhile a few years ago. My mum had just died and I'd been left a little bit of money from her bank account and decided for some reason to build myself a gaming PC. Was it really worth it to play a few games? All this hassle, I was a bit stressed out. Like, it had been 15 years since I'd built a PC and I suspected things might have moved on a bit. I didn't know if I still knew how to do it, and I'd just gone in off the deep end and ordered all this stuff. Years ago I'd built a PC, and when I came to turn it on, nothing happened, and I thought I might have done something to break it, or maybe the motherboard was just defective. I don't really know, but I had to send it back. And now, 15 years later, I was building another PC. I was fixing the motherboard into the case, and it was like really quite hard to reach some of the screw fittings. And I remember I had this screw balanced on the tip of the screwdriver. You could balance the screw on the tip and then try to guide it into this tight little crevice in the motherboard, and it kept falling off and just like landing on the motherboard, and I'm like, oh, that's not good, you know, is that gonna damage it or scratch it? Like, I want to be as careful as possible, and managed to fish it out a few times, but I'm getting stressed out and I'm thinking like, is this really worth it? And so I put the screw back on the top of the screwdriver, and I'm thinking like, am I an idiot for buying all this stuff? Like, this is a lot of money for gaming. Like, I was happy with my Xbox, wasn't I? And I put the screw on the end of the screwdriver, tried to get it into this fitting again, fixing, and it fell off the end of the screwdriver and just got lodged in the motherboard heatsink somewhere. Ah, God. A couple of years ago I'd said there's no way I'm getting back into PC gaming. I'd played far too much Quake and Counter-Strike when I was a kid, and more than anyone should. It kind of messed up my A levels a little bit because of it. You know, when you're 37, gaming's done, isn't it? Like, you've got responsibilities, and I had quite a lot of responsibilities. But what happened was I reconnected with some friends, and there was this really good idea that we could keep in touch by playing Xbox. And I thought, okay, that's cool, that's casual. If it happens, that would be great. We'd spent our formative years hanging out, partying, watching films together, listening to music, playing computer games, and just like sharing geeky lore about stuff. And like these were things that we had no time for these days. Around that time, I saw a trailer for Sea of Thieves in my local game store, and it showed four friends sort of shouting and yelling like the way people do when they're streaming, but they were drinking grog and getting drunk and playing instruments and nearly crashing a ship. It looked like a lot of fun, and I thought, yes, this is something that I definitely want to play with my friends. And the truth was, I was struggling a bit. I'd moved to a new area, I didn't know too many people. As I said, I had a lot of responsibilities. It wasn't like a time of carefree fun. And yet, I really remember the first time we logged into Sea of Thieves together on launch day. We'd all got ready for it, and I remember like the first time I fired myself out of a cannon, and like one of my friends was like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that. The servers were so overloaded that like I think it took a day for the gold and the treasure that we'd earned and sold to actually filter through and be logged. And you know, people were trashing the game on YouTube and Reddit or social media and places. They're saying like there's no content, like this is, you know, unfinished game sort of thing, there's nothing to do. And that just wasn't my experience at all. You could just see the potential of this game. There was a huge area to explore. There was plenty to do for the time being. And it was always clear there was going to be more content if this game could just survive long enough through the kind of social media storm of dissatisfaction, then it would be in a great place. It was unique, and just its potential for emergent stories was massive. We were just having a great time in it, and it was so good to reconnect with those guys. It didn't really matter what other people thought. I loved it. Then I was in a cafe, I remember very clearly, goofing off from work, reading Twitter, something I don't do anymore, and seeing these reports coming in from Italy about what was happening there with people falling very ill, towns and cities being overwhelmed, hospitals being overwhelmed, and it was very frightening. It was all very serious, and we were all, pretty soon we were all forced to stay at home, and that was a tough time for everyone. But I really look forward to those gaming nights that we had. Like, I think we just played once a week on a Friday. We played like Friday the 13th, and I remember squealing with fear as my friends chased me as Jason Voorhees. We played Sea of Thieves, obviously, like tucking and hiding on people's ships and then waiting for the perfect moment to blow them up and steal all their treasure, like good Samaritans that we are. Yeah, and playing like shooters like Warzone and Rainbow Six Siege, and just kind of leaning in and trying to get a win and sweating it out. So at a difficult time in my life, this was a real source of fun and creativity and connection that I kind of remember someone saying to me, like, you just light up when you talk about playing these games. And I think I was talking about Sea of Thieves at the time, some crazy escapade where we destroyed a galleon, but yeah, like, it'd given me a bit of time to figure things out and adapt to circumstances that had changed in my life. A bit of breathing room so I could get a bit of help as well. And I think also during that pandemic time, I remember like growing up a bit and learning to speak in a sort of adult to adult way, which helped with some of the troubles that I was and stresses that I was facing. Yeah, so I rediscovered this childhood passion of gaming, and thanks to my friends, and I had this interest in maybe dipping my toe back into that water a little bit of like building a gaming PC, being able to play on mouse again, because I never quite got used to controller, although it's very convenient, and some people are obviously gods on controller, but not me. So I really wanted to play Hunt Showdown on mouse as well, because I love that game. But I like to think that my gaming now is a lot more balanced than when I was playing 8 hours of Quake a day as a kid, and that it's more intentional, it's more about connection, it's not about the games. Like, I do obviously have my preferences in terms of what I play, but it's more about the people that I play with. And it's kind of crazy actually, because when we were kids, we loved the Monkey Island Pirate Adventure games, and one thing we wanted more than anything was like a multiplayer Monkey Island game, or at least a new Monkey Island game. And then Sea of Thieves comes along and it does that. And later Sea of Thieves obviously incorporated the Monkey Island content. Like, they clearly loved these games as much as we did. And so I decided, I love this. I want to build a gaming PC, not a crazily expensive one, and see, what that gives me access to and what's possible. But that's great. But when you're stressed out actually building the thing and you're thinking, what are people going to think of me for spending this much money on this stuff? And have I broken it? Like, am I going to break it? I don't know. So what do you do when the screw is lodged in the motherboard's heatsink and you don't know where it is? Well, I picked up the case, I turned it one way, I turned it the other, I was sort of moving it around, shaking it, trying to get this screw out There's still so much stuff to build, like, oh, there's the power supply. The graphics card's easy to put in, but putting all the cables, I'm not good at cable management. Like, I don't know how that is done. Like, I just put the cables in as neatly as I can, but I've got all that still to do. Probably still got to put the processor in, and even though I've done that before, it was 15 years ago, so thermal paste, am I going to put it on wrong and just smear it everywhere? But this is all the inner critic. So I lift the case above my head and turn it one way, I'm turning it the other. I can hear the screw rattling around in there somewhat. And I'm turning it back the other way and then rotating it 45 degrees, like a very expensive marble maze. And then suddenly, the screw drops out onto the dining room table. I pick it up, put it back on the tip of the screwdriver, and try again. In a couple of hours, I had the PC assembled, and now came the moment of truth. I pressed the power button and turned the computer on, except it didn't turn on. Black screen. A sinking feeling. Oh, what an idiot. I've spent all this money and I've clearly done something wrong and broken it. I checked the cables, they were all fine. I checked the graphics cards, that was fine. Hold on. The RAM's not seated properly. Well, that's easy to fix. I pushed the RAM in properly, closed the case back up, press the power button. Game on.